Welcome to my channel. My name is Magnus. Should everyone have the same access within your organization to all systems? And should everyone have the same access to all systems no matter what device they're using? In this video we will be talking about identity-based access. It's no longer enough to assume that everything with the organization is safe and trustworthy and should be able to reach all assets. In the last video we did talk about office segmentation. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it in the description below. In today's network, even if the network is segmented, firewall rules are normally built on IP address, and of course that's better than nothing. But let's take SQL as an example. In a bigger organization there are DevOps or IT staff. Some will need access or possibility to send SQL traffic directly to a server. The old way of doing this would be to have a source IP and then a destination IP of the server, and then just allow the port that you need. And in this case it would be 1433. Issue with this is that the user that requests this access no longer have any chance of mobility. What happens if you change IP address? And normally you change IP address if you change to Wi-Fi or even a VPN. Security will be very high, and the issue with this is that the user will not have the same access within the organization. So he cannot move around. Mobility will be very limited. And doing this way will generate a lot of firewall tickets, and that's unnecessary. Second and more common way is to make the firewall rules based on an IP segment. And then it's the question, do you have a dedicated segment for the DevOps or for the IT? Maybe they're on a different floor. This means that you need to have a lot of segments within your office network, and that gives complexity to manage. It takes a lot of IP addresses, and still you don't have the mobility or flexibility that the user actually require. How many segments would you then need? And the issue with that is still all the users within that segment then have access to all the stuff that you actually request from. And should they have that? What if you have 800 people in an IT department? Should you then segment it even more? And most of the times you will build up the rule base built on this segment, and it will be more or less office network. So if you're in the office network, then you have access to all the servers. If you have an office network that is segmented based on devices, well, at least then you have limited which devices should be able to connect to the office network. The issue with this is that the bigger openings you have, the bigger is the attack vector. And as you all know, not all servers are patched, even if we want them to be. They are not patched for the next week, for the next month, or even years. It depends on service windows, it depends on time, it depends on cost. And there is nothing temporary. Everything that is set up temporary will be permanent. If everyone on the user network will be able to send SQL traffic to the server, there is a lot more users and devices that can actually send traffic to the server than it needs to be. What happens then if you get the malware or virus or even a hacker within the network? Then this application or this hacker will be able to exploit more servers because it can reach it. And this can be knowingly or not knowingly. What you have gained when building the firewall rules on user segment is mobility. So the mobility has increased a lot. Attack vector has also increased a lot. So security is getting, I wouldn't say compromised, but the security will be limited. Is there another way to solve this? Sure, there are several ways, and one of them is identity-based access within the network, not only the application itself. Together with segmentation of the network, then you have a lot of options, or combining identity-based access with segmentation of the network. And if the segmentation is done with 802.1x, then you have great flexibility, because then you can dictate in a very granular way. If a corporate device with the correct user, then you get administrative access. But if you have a private device with the correct user, maybe you only get user access or limited access. Do you understand how powerful that can actually be? So if a user has this device or a corporate laptop, they will have different access to the systems. And the reason for this is that the corporate device you control. The IT can patch it, they can make sure that it's up to date. And that way it's more secure. There are many companies that offer a solution for this, and it's more or less called zero trust in some way. And I myself, I use firewalls from a vendor called Checkpoint. And this is in combination with segmentation built on 802.1.x from Cisco ISE or Cisco ISE. I don't know how you say it. I build all my rules with AD groups, and the AD groups are populated within an approval system. So if someone's searching a system, they need to get approval from the system manager to get into the system. And when they get added to that system, this is built on an AD group. This is also opening the firewall. I have connected the firewall to the Active Directory to see which type of groups exist. And then I also read from the security log from the Active Directory to see what user has what IP. And this way I can match it in my rule base and build rules on AD groups. It's true that this only works for Windows, but you're able to connect it to different things like a Cisco ISE. This way you can also get MacBooks or Linux, and you can even gather it from a website. So you prompt the user with a website where they are forced to put in their credentials. There's also agents for RDS or Citrix, so you can follow a session instead of just an IP address. And you can even build more automatic rules if you build a source on AD groups and you build a destination on security groups from, for example, VMware NSX, or you can build it from EPGs from Cisco ACI. This way you have a dynamic object as source and a dynamic object as destination. Then you only need to build a framework, and there is someone else that populates that groups. It's helpdesk that populates the AD groups. Maybe it's the application that adds the tag to the server. So then you have a very powerful tool to have your firewall rules, and your firewall rules and your firewall requests will be a lot less. So how do you actually build a rule base? Well, first of all, you need some kind of backup. Meaning, if you get problems with your AD integration, you don't want the complete company to put into halt. And if you think about it, most users will never use admin access. So if you have some sort of user-based access, for example, you can allow everyone to use HTTPS to all systems because it's encrypted, and maybe you get the login page. But more or less you need to build a map which access should be default if you are on a corporate device on a corporate network, no matter if it's Wi-Fi, VPN or Office. Just figure out what systems do actually everyone in the company need to access. And this can be the intranet, the SharePoint, maybe a few systems like the user portal for payroll or time reports. And then after that, you build the admin access based on AD groups. So when I have built this kind of rules for the companies I have worked against and for the company I currently work for, then you have general rules that include like DNS, NTP, ping, things that everyone needs, and maybe Active Directory as well. Then you have some sort of standard access, and in our case, HTTPS and Citrix. And then you have trusted devices. That is a corporate device with a corporate user. Then you have HTTPS and HTTP, maybe you have some file share, maybe you have some Citrix. You can have more because it's a trusted device that you control as an IT department. And then I have done like this. I have declined everyone with that is only a trusted user and don't use a corporate device to use the AD groups. So after that, I have put system 1 or whatever system, and I have built 3 groups, one for admin, one for DevOps, and one for user. Because some system, they have specific ports for even for user access. That way we have built 3 different levels, and this is a standard. If the application owner wants more, they can have more. So this is an example on how I have built it. Yes, you see the feeling of it. How do you actually group things together? Well, the absolute best is to get the information from the application owner or from some kind of system. And if it's the application owner that gives tags for security groups, then it's dynamically updated and your life gets a lot easier. So it's also possible to do this manually by either asking the application owner and sit down with them, just have a short meeting, maybe it's 30 minutes, and you go through all the servers and all the type of traffic patterns that their application is using, and then you build a rule base together with them. This will give the feeling that you care about their system, and they will give you the best information they can. And because it's then dynamically, they get a lot of power. So if you build it on groups, well, maybe they can add more service to that groups, and it's easier. They get their firewall request a lot faster. Just keep in mind to have that sort of standard rules, so let's say 80% of the company can work without identity-based access.